2018 to order and ask for a roll call.
Okay, Daphne?
Here.
Forsby?
Here.
Meg? Here. Scylla? Here. Kelly?
Here, and at this point I'm going to adjourn to closed session. It's 6 o'clock, and I'm Doug Kelly, I'm President of the Ross Valley Sanitary Board. I'm calling the regular board meeting to February 21st back in session. I'm reporting that we, well, I'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first. So if everyone will stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I am reporting that there's nothing to report from our closed session. Yeah, we did give directions, yeah, thank you. Hang on one second. The folks who are here for Marin Clean Energy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the board to move that agenda item up to before number 7. So I'd like to move item number 16, consideration of approving change to deep green rates with Marin Clean Energy from 16 to after 6 before 7. Do I have any objections? No. Okay. Then we're going to do that. So then I'm going to ask for an approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda with the one amendment to item 16.
Second. Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. I'd like to announce now, before we go to the deep green, an open time for public to raise items not on the agenda or for the public to ask for future agenda items. Members of the public may address the board on issues that are within our sanitary district jurisdiction but are not on the agenda tonight. The board cannot take any action on this tonight, but we'll listen to your comments.
No discussion.
We can, yeah, no discussion. Does anybody have any open? Okay. For the purposes of the Marin Clean Energy discussion, we do have a sign-in sheet. We encourage you, you're not required to sign in, but if you'd like to sign in, it helps Marin, when she does her agenda next week, report that a certain citizen had a certain comment. And if you are commenting on the Marin Clean Energy, we ask that you stand and tell us your name and where you're from. And so let me now open up agenda item number 16. Consideration of approval to change to deep green rates with Marin Clean Energy. And I'd like a staff report, please.
Okay, I will provide a brief overview of the staff report, and a little bit of background, and then hand this back to the board, Doug. So the consideration of moving to I'll just generally refer to as the deep green rate structure with Marin Clean Energy is actually something that's been in the background for the district for a while. We haven't given it formal consideration. The district has been a customer of Marin Clean Energy for a number of years. I don't know exactly how many, but certainly the last, I think at least 5 years. We've been at the 50% renewable energy rate structure for at least the last 3 to 4 years. And the shift to the 100% renewable or the deep green rate structure is a request that's been brought to us through the community that we felt we had. It's been a very busy set of board agendas lately with the end of the last year and the beginning of the new year. We saw an opportunity to bring this topic to the board, so that's really the only reason it's coming now. It's a fairly straightforward in the sense that there is not a lot of administrative or procedural issue to this change. Basically, if and when there were a decision and direction provided by the board, staff would work with the MCE staff to update their rate structure for us. It would then show up at some point that we deem the effective change date. We can always move back as well, just to be clear. So what I want to mostly give a little bit of context because really for example, from a financial perspective, the significance of this is somewhat dependent, of course, on the amount of energy usage that you have and your resulting costs and so forth. So What you have in the staff report are some very high-level summary numbers. I want to emphasize they're approximate. The district's energy use is essentially 99% plus of it is from our large wastewater pump stations. And those are the pump stations that take all of the gravity flow from the Ross Valley collection system and put it under pressure into what we call force mains, which are the pressurized pipelines that then pump it to the CMSA treatment plant over here on the other side of I-580. If everyone's, I'm sure, familiar with that, with where that is. So even though we are a wastewater conveyance and collection agency, we actually aren't a huge energy user, relatively speaking. So those pump stations, based on the past 3 years, have been averaging about $160,000, $170,000 a year in energy costs. As everyone who lives here knows, we have very, very variable winters. And when we have heavy winters, we have heavy wet weather flows at the agency, which means we use more energy. If you look back a couple of years during our drought years, our energy use was probably half or less of what it is on the heavy wet years. And it's just strictly a matter of how much water are you trying to move. So those are kind of some of the mechanics behind all this. The financials, relatively straightforward. The approximate estimate of the change when you roll all of this in on the kilowatt hour charge is about a 5% increase in the power costs overall to the agency on a per kilowatt hour basis. So if you take the last 3 years as an average, we've had some dry years, some wet years, so it's just that, it's an average. We are calculating that that's going to result in about an $8,000 per year increase in the power costs to the district. Now that again, highly dependent on what kind of a year we actually have. So the reasons for doing this are, in staff's understanding, and also kind of from the, I think what we've heard from the community is, you're not doing this certainly in the short term out of a financial optimization. You're doing it out of other policy goals that have been established in the 2016 strategic plan for the district. And one of the groups of goals in that plan does address long-term community sustainability, and we express that in terms of watershed health, reducing I&I flows, reducing carbon footprint from our energy use, etc. So there's a very direct nexus between how much renewable energy the agency is using and the support of those goals. Now, we're limited. We are not we don't run a treatment plant, for example. We don't have a lot of big facilities at our agency. We have a lot of small footprint facilities. So we're not necessarily well set up to go, let's go do a 5-acre solar farm, or let's go do the gas digester, energy generation like over at CMSA. We have actually explored a lot of that over the years. And what we found is that, again, because of the nature of our agency, it's just not a good fit. So this is one avenue we have by moving to the deep green rate structure and showing a commitment to, granted, I know there's some questions about how people look at where the energy comes from and so forth, but taking it at face value, you are paying for the purchase and use of 100% renewable energy as an agency under this proposal. We can make that change again at the beginning of the new fiscal year in July, if the board were to decide to go that direction. So there's a lot of flexibility here. But the question for the board this evening is really simply, do you want to consider a change to the deep green rate? The financial implications are in front of you. They would vary, but to put things in perspective, so let's call it an 8 to, I'm just making up a number here. Let's call it an $8,000 to $15,000 annual change, depending on the type of year we have. We are running right now at about a $20 to $21 million operations and maintenance budget for the agency. So that's just, again, to kind of put the numbers in perspective. So that's really all we have from staff, from the staff report. And with that, we would hand it back and answer any questions.
Do we have any questions, Mike?
Not at this time.
Pam?
Could you explain to the public about how the ad valorem tax here and how we operate so they understand?
They're billing?
Yeah, how we receive our money based on rate and the ad valorem tax. So
Sure.
everybody understands
Yeah, yeah.
who we are.
Well, okay, so, yeah, sure.
But just, I'm sorry, just doing
Okay.
a really short.
So, really basic, but that's a good point. So Ross Valley Sanitary District, I'm going to not go back too far. We're one of 3 member agencies that make up the CMSA Joint Powers Authority. CMSA runs and operates the treatment plant across the I-580. San Rafael San District, Ross Valley Sanitary District, and Corte Madera San District number 2, 3 member, and City of Larkspur is also a member agency. The individual customers, property owners within our collective service areas, they each deal with, there are retail customers. They aren't customers of CMSA per se. In other words, you don't get a bill from CMSA for your wastewater treatment. You get a bill from Ross Valley Sanitary District for collection and treatment, and we pay CMSA for the treatment. Your typical customer's bill is included in your annual Marin County tax bill, just as like you see for many other, that one unfortunately growing list of items on your tax bill. That's where ours are embedded as well. So we collect the Ross Valley rates once a year on the Marin County tax bills. Is that what you're, and I didn't quite say that, but you asked.
Then you have rate.
And we get an ad valorem distribution, a portion of the ad valorem tax distribution separate from the rates is also provided from the county in a lump sum distribution twice a year? Twice a year. So I don't want to go into ad valorem because that's a whole other topic, but we get rate revenue and we get ad valorem tax.
Let me just add one more thing for the public to know. We also charge commercial businesses and restaurants and dentists, which are high water uses, have a lot higher rate. We bill them based on the water they purchase from MMWD. So we look at a 3-month time, December, January, February, because we don't want to have outdoor sprinkler systems as part of it. We take the MMWD use, and based on that, we bill them. And so I hope some of you feel good that I sell to restaurants, that's what I do for a living. The restaurants hate us because we charge them a lot of money, but they use a lot of water, and a lot of it needs to be treated. Okay, do you have any questions for staff? Do you have any questions for staff? I don't, so now I'm going to open it to the public. The public is invited to speak. We normally have a 3-minute. We're going to try and make it kind of loosey-goosey. There's a lot of people. Please don't repeat. If you'd like to tell us what you'd like to tell us, we'd love to hear. So anybody may come up. Hi.
Should I stand here?
Please, you can stand right where you are, yeah.
Okay. So good evening, directors.
Oh, you know what? If you stand not in front of the camera, right behind you for you.
Okay, so we're
That's fine. Just move a little to the left. You're fine. There we go. Thank you.
So, good evening, directors and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Helen Marsh. I'm not a district resident, but I'd really like to provide you with some context for the district voting to purchase 100% renewable electricity by going deep green. So, I've been leading a campaign with my colleague Sarah Loughran to increase the use of deep green in Marin. And as we've all seen, the world is experiencing the impacts of climate change brought on by increasing levels of greenhouse gases. And you've seen this in California very clearly. And so we have to do as much as we can to reduce our greenhouse gases as quickly as possible to prevent catastrophic climate disruption. Now more than ever, we need to act at the local level to make change happen. So I know you have a packed agenda, and I'm going to keep my comments short. But going to deep green will reduce the district's electricity-related emissions to zero immediately, as Mr. Norby said. And in combination with energy efficiency measures and installation of on-site renewable energy, it's the most cost-effective way to reduce greenhouse gases. And as of October of 2017, all of the cities and towns in Marin and the county of Marin purchased deep green for their municipal accounts. So this bold leadership makes Marin the first county in California in which all municipal accounts are powered by 100% renewable energy. You may also know that Marin Municipal Water, North Marin Water, and Tamalpais Community Service Districts have also opted for deep green, and more businesses and residents have been following suit. So there's a growing commitment in Marin to reducing greenhouse gases. reflecting our long-standing leadership in the environment. If you vote to go deep green tonight, Ross Valley Sanitary will be the first independent wastewater special district to do so. Sanitary District Number 2 is already deep green as a result of Port Madera going deep green. So this would show tremendous leadership for other Marin wastewater agencies to follow suit. And going deep green supports the climate action plans of Marin municipal and county governments, and it's helping them to meet their state reduction goals. It also supports the county's Drawdown Marin initiative, which is to reduce emissions to zero across all sectors. So please join the other government agencies that have already gone deep green and vote yes. And I'd also like to say that there are a number of constituents in the room. Out of respect for you, we're not all going to speak, but could I have everybody who's here in support of deep green stand up, please?
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, I have your email to me. You sent me a package. I printed 10 copies for the board and for the staff. We'll put it in the record. I stopped printing when I realized it was 73 pages. So I gave the board 2 pages, the deep green fact sheet and the organizations in the deep green, but the entire email will be on the record. We have emails, both positive and negative, that will go on the record. Anyone else like to speak? Great. Okay, that's good. I appreciate that. That's helpful.
That helps.
I'm Bruce Ackerman. I'm actually on the town council in Fairfax, but I'm speaking as an individual and as a constituent of the sanitary district. So thank you for putting this on the agenda, and I thought that was an excellent staff report. The town of Fairfax, of which I'm also on the Climate Action Committee, moved its municipal accounts to deep green back when MCE started back in 2010. And as Elaine said, other municipalities have all now moved to deep green. And we've also been involved in efforts in Fairfax through the Climate Action Committee to get businesses and residential customers to move to deep green, and have been pretty successful in that. And I found it to be, as soon as people understand the difference, it seems to be something that most people are supportive of. We definitely should do what we can, I believe, to prevent further deterioration of our climate. But I'd also like to make a few points. Spending that additional, possibly $8,000 a year, the district would be using 100% renewable energy, greenhouse gas-free energy, and that would represent an annual reduction from the figures that you gave of about 120 metric tons of CO2 per year, which is substantial. Doing so meets the sustainability goals of the district's strategic plan. And an explanation about deep green, the extra amount, that 8,000 or so that you would be using to upgrade to deep green, 50% of that goes toward purchasing that additional 50%, so you get the full 100% of completely renewable energy on your behalf. The other 50% of it goes directly to building or making long-term contracts for mostly building renewable generation here locally. And that's actually the part I'm the most excited about. So that, to date, those include Cooley Quarry, Redwood Landfill, the Buck Institute Carport, the Cost Plus feed-in tariff, and the Solar One in Richmond, which is a really large array that was built on a brownfield in Richmond and is just coming online now. So those actually represent, for us, for all of us living here in this area, they represent not only that we're doing the right thing for the planet and for our children's future, but actually also we're doing the right thing economically, because for us, that will insulate us from future volatility and no doubt increases in the price of carbon-based energy. We'll be much more insulated from that here in this area because of having had the foresight to build our own generation, that because there's no fuel costs, there'll be no cost increases going forward. And so we're actually indirectly coming back and making this operation more sustainable as well.
Thank you.
So, thank you for considering.
Thank you. Anyone else?
just make a quick statement. I just wanted to talk about, I'm Sue Saunders, I'm in San Anselmo.
Okay.
And we've been reaching out and trying to get residents and local businesses to go deep green. And I've had nothing but positive feedback, and that many people don't even know what deep green is and that they have that option. And it's a really positive thing that Marin County is doing. And it's not just, climate change, it's a public health issue. That, people are getting lung cancer and the asthma rates are skyrocketing because of the fossil fuel pollution. And that it's not just about the climate, or it's about, public health and making Marin County a leader in that effort and protecting our kids in that sense too. So there's a whole slew of reasons to go deep green, and from my perspective and a lot of the neighbors I've talked to, there's no good reason not to. So, thank you.
Sir?
Yes, good evening. My name is David Haskell. I live at 25 Glen Drive in Fairfax. And as one of your customers,
Yeah.
I'm asking you to tax me.
Okay.
I'm asking you to make me pay a carbon tax. And if this seems like a carbon tax, because the least cost approach to doing this is a least cost approach that will literally cost us the earth.
Yep.
And so please, as your constituent, I gladly accept whatever extra charge you want to charge me.
Can we make a profit on this?
So thank you very much.
I think it'll be less than 50 cents.
Yeah. A year per EPA.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Anthony Marin. I'm here speaking for Sustainable Marin. Sustainable Marin is a group of private independent citizens who are a volunteer group working for more sustainability throughout the community. I just like to associate myself with previous speakers, urging you to opt up to deep green and 100% renewable power. Make the point that this $8,000 charge, if you really get serious about energy efficiency and energy conservation and reduce the amount of electricity you pay for, then it may be that you could offset the extra charge to deep green through robust energy efficiency measures. I know you probably looked at energy efficiency in your plant, in your machines, but take another look because this is where the big savings are. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Steve. You can stay right there because you're not the
Hi,
camera.
I'm Stephen Keys, I live in Fairfax, and just to maybe assure you, as I understand, there are about 14,000 households in Ross Valley. $8,000 divided by 14,000 households is about 57 cents a year. So the tax won't be very high.
It's 19,000. Thank you. Not their households, but then plus businesses, so it's 19,000.
So it's even less.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment section and bring it back to the board. I'm going to start with the end here.
Just so you also know, CMSA produces their own power down the street by using the effluent and digesting it. And we are, Tom and I are on the board of the commission over there, and we are currently getting ready to start pushing energy out, to produce so much energy over there that using your effluent, much more. We are getting, we've got all the interconnections and everything in place to start selling actually energy to Marin Clean Energy. Are we committed to Marin Clean Energy?
We're close.
We're very close to committing to Marin Clean Energy and pushing the power out there. Currently running at, what, 95% off the grid over there?
Yeah, in other words, the big plant produces just about all of its own energy, and we're investing in some facilities which will let us transport energy to Marin Clean Energy.
Which is probably why the Central Marin Sanitary Agency is not on here.
So
we're not.
need to.
Is that a question, Michael?
So, how are you?
Do you need a question
Any
about
more
this?
questions?
No, well, do you want to tell us what you're going to do?
What do you mean?
Are you going to support or not support the measure?
I'm looking to do it.
Okay, thank you. Tom?
Well, I have some technical questions. This is actually Marin Clean Energy. What they do is they're just covering the generation cost. And what is PG&E's generation cost? We now pay 7 cents a kilowatt hour for generation through our 50%, and we're going to go up to 8. What is PG&E charge for the generation?
They're slightly more.
It is slightly more, maybe a penny more.
There's a differential in MCE is less expensive.
Even with 100%, it's slightly more for PG&E. Is that correct?
It's parity.
It's about correct. It's less than it's 50%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then we did get a number of emails opposed, and their main, the main consideration they have is how Marin Clean Energy is being operated, and there's discussion about how much their employees make. And I think we'd all be better off if we look at Marin Clean Energy's operation. If, I don't know if that's true, but that's what we heard from our constituents, was that, the only negative we heard was that maybe they don't do too much, except their salaries are high. I can tell you, I support switching to 100%, but I think it's a nominal. I think it's the thing that public agencies should support. It's the right direction.
All right. Mary?
Yeah, I agree. I would say, I'd point out that 2 of the negative emails we received are actually from people who don't live in our district. So given the show of people we have who actually do live in our district, by that measure, it's pretty easy for me. And I was doing the calculation, and then Greg told us, but it's if it's the $8,000 figure, it's 0.04% of our budget. And we have spent $8,000, I think, on things that did not bring as many folks out to see how we operate. So I appreciate you guys being here. It's been a long time since we had a full meeting.
Okay, thank you. One more comment here, Tom?
Yeah, I also had a comment on that gentleman about, energy efficiencies. We're redoing our pump stations.
Yeah.
And there are big, we have several really big pump stations. And as you heard, I've toured our pump stations. The normal pump is about this big, and it operates about 40% of the time it goes off, and then we have a wet well that fills. And then right next to this little pump is a pump about this big, about that big, the motor. And then right next to that are 3 pumps that are much bigger than about 2 hot water heaters. And we've got 3 of them. And during storms, all of them are going. And so we are really working, our main focus here is to cut down on inflow infiltration. And we've spent a lot of your money on that, believe me. And
you have to explain what that is. They don't know. That's maybe inflow and infiltration.
Cracks
and pipes that bring in.
In other words, the flow increases in the winter, and we're trying to eliminate that.
It shouldn't.
A wastewater agency can't eliminate all of it, but we really would like to knock that down, and that would be a huge power saving. And we're redoing our pump station. I think we're going to go to much more efficient pumps too.
We are, yeah. So that's we aren't entirely limited on what we can do. I mean, we just don't have as many choices as some agencies. But as Tom mentioned, so each of our major pump stations is either undergoing or have a pending pretty much complete modernization and overhaul. So they're getting high efficiency pumps, high efficiency motors, and the old pumps and motors weren't necessarily matched in an optimal manner to how the system operates, I'll put it that way. So the new system will run on more finely tuned operating parameters on what we call variable frequency drives, which means instead of having a pump be either on at full rate or off at 0 rate, the pump operates on a continual flow range that's programmable based on what's coming into the station. So what it means is a lot of what we pay PG&E is what's called standby charges, and it depends on what's the largest draw, instantaneous draw that you pull from the system. So you're paying for instantaneous capacity to pull from the system. That's part of what you're paying for. But how often you use that is up to you. So the changes at the pump stations basically take all of those operating parameters and bring them down into more efficient, basically just more efficient operating territory. So these are pumps that are 25, 30 years old. The new ones have much higher standards. So that alone, plus, as you mentioned, Tom, though this is going to take a little longer, the reduction in the wet weather I&I flows, at the end of the day, that reduces the volume that we're pumping, and that's the most fundamental measure.
Thank you, and keeping in mind that the $8,000 to $15,000 estimate Greg gave us is based on the old pumps, not the new ones.
That is correct, because this is the current one.
And just to give you an idea of how difficult, how big a problem the I&I is, during our wet weather flows like we had last year, we go from dry weather of about 11 million gallons a day to central Marin to 120 million gallons a day.
And that's just
And that's not from people flushing more or taking more showers. That's all stormwater coming into our system. And so we are working very, very, very hard to stop those leaks into the system, reducing costs everywhere across the board.
Before I go to you, Pam, then, since you said that, and since we have a room full of people who are environmentally conscious, you might see the picture on the way out in the lobby. The pipes in the street are ours. The pipes from your homes to the street are yours. They're called laterals. They crack, they break, they let in water, they let out what you're trying to bring to us. And so you should all replace your laterals. You have to when you sell your house, you have to when you do a $75,000 improvement or more, but you may anytime you want, and we grant $1,500, up to $1,500 towards that. So that would be a great way for people who care about the environment to improve their own homes. Yeah.
Okay, you talked about public health. I'm a nurse for 30+ years. Right on, right on, public health, that's why we're here. That's where these agencies come from, as people died at the turn of the century because of wastewater that was not being treated. The other thing I want to just focus on briefly is our strategic plan. We spent very long hours, many meetings to bring us together to figure out what is our strategic plan, and we used sustainability and we had a climate change section. So I'm really happy about that. Last, I'm just like kind of blown away. Here I am. I was friends with Rebecca Collins. I don't know, does anybody know Rebecca Collins? Before even...
Yes, your photo's on.
Before MCE was ever thought of, and we used to sit sometimes at my house talking about how could we do certain things with the environment. She had this vision about energy, and so here I am today. So thank you, but I'm going to vote for it. Yes.
Thank you. So let me talk about a couple things. You mentioned Ross Valley Sanitary District would be the first independent sanitary district. Yeah, well, we're the first one in the state. So this is sanitary district number 1. I'm going to be consistent. Bruce on Fairfax Town Council. I voted for San Somo going to deep green when I served on the San Somo Town Council, which was one of the first towns along with Fairfax, the first 4. I don't remember what 4 they were, but it was Fairfax, San Somo, and 2 others. I'm not changing how I view this, so I'm going to vote for this measure. And with that, I'm going to call for a motion.
I move that we approve the change from 50 to 100% renewable energy under MCE's deep green rate structure.
I second.
Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Crickets. The motion passes. And you're all welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Thank you for your, I'm going to take a couple of minute break.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 7, standing committee report out. Let's start with the finance committee. Tom, do you want to talk about that? On Tuesday, yesterday?
Do we mind if
Okay, the finance committee reviewed the interim financial statement.
No, we don't. I don't know what kind of this, we're going to move on. She can join us when she goes back.
We reviewed the interim meeting.
No, I called it break. I did, I called it break.
Oh.
We also reviewed the financial performance, and then, and that's a quarterly report. We had some items to add to it, like a summary of our debt service and a few other ideas. We heard a presentation on investment of bond proceeds, and that's going to be one of our agenda items, so we're going to talk about that some more. We talked a little bit about the changing to deep green, which we just reviewed, and turns out that our joint powers agency to issue bonds, we use the Ross Valley Public Financing Authority, which is a JPA, requires an audit. It's a definite body. So now we've got to spend $3,000 a year to get an audit, which isn't a lot. But,
well, we have to go backwards.
And we have to audit the last several years. Am I missing anything that's
no.
And we reviewed the capital program and the
legal bills.
Yeah, legal bills, which were out.
Okay. We did. We also a little typo on one of those pages, but we fixed that. I don't remember where that was, but that's okay. Okay, Central Marin Sanitation Agency, right?
I'll start. The main thing we did is we have been working for months on the budget and the 5-year financial plan for Central Marin Sanitary Agency. And Tom, with his vast knowledge, and I, with less knowledge than Tom, put together a different plan than I think what CMSA has put together in the past. And our thought was that rather than have a 5-year rate plan, which the rates are really us, the Ross Valley Sanitary District, that varied from year to year based on their capital improvement program and other things, we said, wait a minute, that's very difficult for us as agencies to deal with widely varying year to year rates to us. Is there any way that we could do this over the next 5 years, different than what you're thinking, that we could make it so that it was, our goal was a 3.5% increase, flat out 5 years, but forecasting out 10 and even further. That would then take care of everything that, Jason, CMSA would want to do. We can question what projects they want to do, but it's an old facility and they need a lot of maintenance over there. And so there was some thought about, okay, maybe we could push some of the projects out and things like that, but they really spent a tremendous amount of effort. They hired fellow engineering to come in and figure out what the time frame for doing the projects were. And instead, their thought was to do one bond issuance, a large one, and then the rates would go all up and down. And what Tom came up with, and we then talked about it with them, and is being implemented, is actually 2 bond issuances. One about 4 years out, because that's pretty clear that we're going to need that money at that time. But then the next one, which is how many years out? 9 years?
Yeah, 6 or 7.
6 or 7 years out, it becomes more not exactly knowable what's going to happen, and we're certainly probably not going to do all of the capital projects. So rather than finance all that after 4 years and then just sit on the money, having a second bond issuance flattened our rates, and so they're going to come back with the plan is 3.5% for the next 5 years.
And that's good. That finances $46 million worth of projects. We didn't eliminate any projects. We said we're finance every single one.
So I'm sorry, 3.5% for how many years?
Pardon me?
How many years for 3.5?
For 5, we approved 5, but we did projections for 10 years, and actually it works for 10 years.
3.5 across for 10 years.
Yeah. But we were approving, just like we can only approve 5 years anyway. The other thing we did was they got a FEMA FEMA grant, 56 million. Excuse me, 56,000.
I was gonna say, what, and
Yeah.
they still need
Can
to
we
go
get
to the bond market?
I was talking millions, you know, what's it? But it was pretty cool. They had a slide out there on Anderson Drive, and they immediately applied for a FEMA grant and got it, and they showed us the checks. The other thing coming up, which is potential killer, is the SFA nutrient permit. And nutrients are nitrogen, nitrates, nitrogen. And nitrogen removal is very expensive, 20 million plus or more. And the South Bay discharges into shallow water, so those people, San Jose and those, they're probably going to have to do nitrogen removal. But, you know, we would hope we don't have to do nitrogen removal. We do nitrification, denitrification, or something like that. So that's coming up, and we're in a, I think there's 25 agencies and 30 agencies in the Bay Area that are doing the studies jointly. And we're doing all kinds of testing. We are still in the testing phase. We talked the regional board into another 5 years of testing, which is good news. But maybe after 5 years, something about that to get built.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. CMSA Joint Powers Agreement ad hoc committee. Did I even have the meeting? Didn't I report this the
Just
last
a
time?
while, but yeah.
I think I reported this out last time. I
Yeah.
don't think we've had a meeting since the last
You
meeting.
are correct.
So I'm gonna.
Okay, but I would like to instruct our representative to recommend to Larkspur. I think that the JPA committee ought to recommend to Larkspur what to do with Larkspur, what you feel you should do.
Thank you. Let me address that. And I spoke to Jason. Jason's the general manager of CMSA about this briefly. What's happened is we have this ridiculous catch-22 where I've spoken privately to the council members, Mayor Larkspur and the Larkspur town manager. And they're waiting for the Joint Powers Authority to tell them what to do. And the Joint Powers Authority is waiting for Larkspur to tell them what to do. And it's a big catch-22. I am going to, with the board's approval, and I think I'll have it, I am going to tell Jason at the next meeting, I'm going to ask that we ask Larkspur to have a meeting and put it on their agenda. And I believe if they have a meeting and they put it on the agenda, we'll have an answer. And then it'll be easy for the JPA to make a recommendation. I am going to make a recommendation unless this board doesn't allow me to.
Well, we have an agenda. We'll talk about it.
Okay, so then let's move on. Okay, I'm now going to open up item agenda 8. So item agenda 8, I'm going to read it as the public hearing to consider adoption of ordinance number 90. An ordinance repealing ordinance 64, adopted August 21st, 2013, and enacting this ordinance related to sewer connection fees and sewer permit fees. Now I'm going to open the public hearing on this. Greg, can you give some background on it?
Yes, I will give you some quick background on this and point out a few highlights in the new ordinance. So the board discussed this topic last month and provided direction on it. We've actually been discussing it in one form or another going back a good 6 or 8 months because of the earlier Marin grand jury reports and so forth. And so I'll keep this part very brief. There were 2 state laws passed in early 2017 that placed certain restrictions on the imposition of connection fees and charges for what are called accessory dwelling units. We were following that, all those developments along with the rest of the industry by chance or however, it was determined that the way those laws were written, they weren't actually effective for California special districts. Fast forward to January 2018, that loophole was noted and the legislature took steps to close that loophole so that by January 2018, those 2 laws were applicable. And all of this is information and developments that we were well aware of and following through CASA and the various legislative committees and so forth, and the board again has been caught up on this. So what we brought you last month was the first cut as an update to our current ordinance, which is Ordinance 64. So Ordinance 90 replaces Ordinance 64, which is our connection fee ordinance. And the main reason we're bringing you a new ordinance is so that we can incorporate the changes necessary to be in compliance with these new state laws. So a lot of this is in last month's staff report, so I won't repeat it except for a couple of highlights. One is that for the purposes of Ross Valley's administrative and permitting language, we use the terms type 1, 2, 3, and 4 to define the types of accessory dwelling units. And I want everyone, just remind everyone, I should say, that in the state law language, they don't use those terms. So we've created them for administrative structure and convenience of the use of the district. Okay, so that's where the type 1, 2, 3, 4 comes from. And again, type 1 is the simplest. You're taking space inside the four walls of an existing single-family residential primary dwelling. You're carving out some space, you're putting a separate entry, etc., per the legal definition, and you've created a dwelling unit. In that case, that's a type 1. Type 2 is where you've expanded and opened up the walls and moved out or raised a second story or something to an existing primary residence to add your accessory dwelling unit. Type 3 is where you've taken something like an old garage or an old accessory structure in your backyard and you said, okay, I'm going to demolish that and I'm going to convert that into a accessory dwelling unit. And then type 4 is kind of your traditional, I'm just going to go out and because I have a big enough parcel, I'm going to just go build a small guest house in the back, of a completely new structure. That's a type 4. Okay. Those types, just so you're clear, the definitions of them are included in the ordinance, in the new ordinance. They are actually specifically listed on basically starting at the bottom of page 4 and going on to page 5. Same language you saw last month, so I won't go back through it. Exhibit A is where the details of our fees and charges are actually captured. Now that's just the same as the current ordinance. If you look at Ordinance 64, it has what's called Exhibit A. And if you were to walk in and go to the front desk, these days, whoever's up there would typically pick up the current version of Exhibit A and say, okay, let's talk about what you're doing and here's what your fees are going to be. So this Exhibit A attached to the new draft ordinance 90 would become what that would be the replacement for that. So if you look at the back of that, there's a table, just like the table you saw in last month's staff report that spells out what the fees are for the new accessory dwelling unit types. The other main points that we felt were important to make, because these have come up in past conversations, is number one, as far as how this interfaces with what we loosely refer to as the lateral ordinance. And the short answer, based on staff's recommendation, is that these are two completely separate policy issues. We went through a lot of effort as an agency to put in place a lateral ordinance because we have this very significant public policy challenge called high I&I that we're trying to solve, and high SSO risk. So we put in the lateral ordinance, which has triggers like a completely new bathroom in a house that doesn't have one now, or an additional bathroom, a building permit greater than $75,000 in value, or the sale of a house. So the question that's come to us in the past is, well, if I build an ADU and it costs me $100,000 in my building permit, am I going to have to comply with the lateral? And the staff recommendation is that the answer to that is yes, you do. Again, we don't want to compromise one public policy outcome or objective for another. It's kind of how we phrase that.
Even in type 1?
Technically, even in type 1, though, it's going to be highly unlikely because we think, from what people have told us, most type 1s are going to use existing space, a bedroom, a bathroom, etc., where what I'm really doing is creating an outside entrance and maybe putting a convenience kitchen in. But to be clear, Pam, if you started with no bathroom whatsoever and you built a new bathroom as part of this ADU, you would be triggering.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this.
Okay,
You're trying to create affordable housing.
correct,
I mean, that is why this is here.
correct.
Yeah. And if you, being a planning commissioner for 8 years, if you start pushing these costs, people walk away. Or they do them illegal. That's just the bottom line, and I know that for years. So, I'm just, I don't know if we probably can't do anything about it, because
Right.
I understand the lateral situation too. I just wish, I don't know what other communities are doing with this. I don't know if they're really being strict with laterals or not. I suppose some are and some aren't, right?
I think it's something most people are still
Because a
catching up on.
lateral, one lateral for this type 1, depending on where you live, and the topography of
Could be
the
expensive.
district could be $50,000.
And most districts around the Bay Area at the moment actually don't have the same level of lateral program that we do, so it is a newly developed.
Yeah, they're also not under a court order.
And yeah, so it's a
Well,
developing.
that'll be gone in a year.
Yeah, so that's something you should keep in mind. I mean, and we can certainly come back to look at any changes on that. That's staff's recommendation, because it's come up in past conversations with people.
Are you, do you have any other comments under your?
One other quick one, we do recommend that we allow retroactive application of the new fees to January of 2017, because we know some folks have already started to build these, and they're like, hey.
How many do you have?
4,
Okay.
not a lot.
The beginning January
18 or
2018.
17?
Actually, we're suggesting 2017, just for administrative simplicity, because those 2 new laws that created the ADUs they were in effect in January 2017. They just weren't technically applicable to us until a year later.
Okay,
So-
so we're meeting the spirit of what they.
Yeah.
we did.
Given the small number of properties involved, it's staff's view that rather than have you guys have people, because we know we're going to have some customers who've told us they're going to come in, they're going to ask for an appeal anyway. For the amount of funds involved and out of the interest of equity, we decided, okay, just make it January. That's basically it. The rest of this you've already seen. Staff's recommendation is to approve the new ordinance. It would go into effect after the minimum publishing window, which I think takes us out to March 7th, I think. Takes us out just a couple of weeks.
All right, thank you. Any member of the public interested in commenting on this issue, please come up. Okay, hearing no comments, I now close the public hearing. Is there any discussion by the board?
Can we retroactively change our permit fees?
You probably, you do have discretion to, in certain circumstances, give somebody a break if there's a good policy reason to do so, and many other entities around the state have done that. They enacted ordinances a year ago before you.
The fees used to be higher. Got it. Okay, we're charging less rather than more. We're not, yes, got it. Okay.
Or in some cases,
That point was lost on my.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, we had a big discussion on this in Finance Committee, and I think it would really help if we add those type 1, 2, 3, 4 definitions just in front of table 1.
yeah.
And then we did have a discussion about, for example, if it's a type 2, the example shows $5,000 or $10,000, and it isn't that, it's proportional, so if they add 12 20 fixture units, it's 12 23rds of that.
Yep.
So we were going to do something.
Example.
So it's clear.
Yeah, so we'll add, because it's going to be kind of a customer-friendly handout, we will add the definitions and we'll add an example calculation, so how do you calculate?
You know, in a discussion on the lateral ordinance, a lot of these people are going to be charging $1,500 and maybe more, per month to rent, and that's $18,000. And if we start making exceptions to a lateral ordinance, it's going to reduce the effectiveness of it. And yes, it may be difficult to implement, but I just believe we've got to have a uniform ordinance and do the best we can to enforce it.
Okay.
Director Kelly, staff has a point of clarification for the general manager's consideration regarding administrative modifications to the exhibit for future needs.
Yes. Thank you. Let's see, okay, so what we're looking, here's what that's about, is that Exhibit A is very much it's a very practical form that gets used, probably virtually every business day up at the front counter. And so what we would like to do is, in terms of should the board approve the adoption of ordinance 90, including Exhibit A, that we, as staff, have the discretion to make what I'll call static modifications and updates to Exhibit A without bringing that back to the board each time. We obviously would not be changing fees.
The substance.
But we think that this could be made more customer friendly, and again, rather than bring that back as part of the ordinance, we want to frame this in a way that gave us the flexibility to make those changes.
And any editorial or inaccuracies that need to be
And
made.
bring it back as a consent item in the future. Right?
Or what we'd like is, within reason, just discretion to make those edits. Yeah, so we don't have to take over the department board time with that. Is that about what
Yes.
we want? That's an important point, because this will not survive the first couple of weeks of use. People
The
are gonna
logo
say,
has to be changed if we
well,
do.
like I said, it's not
Any other
good.
comments?
I read the whole board packet. I love
Pam? Anything? No? All right, Pam, motion?
I move that we adopt ordinance number 90 with some modifications to Exhibit A as we discussed.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? None. Thank you. The motion carries. We're going to come to the consent calendar. Matters under this item are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion unless a member of the board or a public person would like to ask us to pull an item. Is there anybody here who would like to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I'd like to pull G.
Okay, good. Let's pull G, and let's discuss G. Oh, I'm sorry, does anybody else want to pull anything else? Okay, having done that, why don't we discuss G first? All right,
Is that all you want to say?
Marcia and
Well,
Jim are here
I
from.
think we have some experts here to
Yep.
tell us about the GIC, the GIC, and the best bond proceeds. On the other bond, you can invest in the LAIF,
Yep.
and that's now earning 1.35%. But there's a chance for to make even more money with the GIC.
Marcia, do you want to talk about that briefly? We spoke about it on the meeting yesterday.
Yes, hi. What we have recommended or discussed with the staff is the opportunity to increase or yield on the investment of the bond proceeds, the project fund. The fund, it would be drawn down in a guaranteed investment contract that would allow flexibility for the project cost to come through on any given month. It could be higher or lower than what the project cost expectations would be, but it would be in a guaranteed investment contract, which is a investment tool for bond proceeds. We would recommend that it go out for a competitive bid with AA banks for uncollateralized guaranteed investment contract, or a collateralized with government securities for institutions that are rated A, in the A category. You would have the funds invested after the competitive bid. You would have them invested for up to 18 to 24 months, depending upon what the staff's needs were for disbursement of the proceeds.
And on this attachment A, you show a difference between the LAIF, which is, these are estimates, ballpark estimates,
yes,
280,000 to up to 752,000 in interest payments.
Yeah, that was done in the middle of December. LAIF rates have gone up since then, as well as guaranteed investment contract rates. The rates that we've just recently polled some of the potential providers, they were up around the 2% range.
Okay. And you mentioned to us that if we go with an A, for example, an A- provider, if changes to the economy occur and interest rates go up maybe significantly or a bit, somebody on an A- rating might lose that rating, and there's part of the contract is they have to then return the funds or transfer them to an A-rated provider.
It's the district's option to do either or.
Right.
You can do that, either.
And
It's your direction. You can keep it with the A-rated or less bank if they provide sufficient collateral, or you can have them pay you all the principal back and you either reinvest it in a higher earning security or fund or
another gift.
Another gift.
Well, the beauty about that is if they lose their rating because interest rates go up, and then they have to refund the money to us, we could then invest in a gig at a higher interest rate and earn even more money. So by losing, we're winning.
I guess, yes.
How can you do better than that? If interest rates go up, banks do better. So they're not going to lose their rating because it
Yeah, I'm just saying if they do, we have an opportunity to do even better.
Has anybody ever collected on a collateralized gig? Collected the collateral?
Well, we've had them held by a custodian bank and they switch it out, but nobody's ever, from my experience, has changed it out.
I mean,
You mean, it's a bank.
where the collateral had to be
Yeah, we're
called
got
upon.
the collateral.
We got a tractor instead of the interest.
I was hoping we'd use government securities to
That's
collateralize.
I've
Tractors.
I've never heard of it. There's no reason why you would know or not.
And so the key thing here is that the bond documents, which we already approved, authorize the manager to a competitive bid and on a recommendation of our consultants decide what to do. And if the difference between an A and a double A is 3 basis points, if the A is collateralized, I'm okay with that, but if it's an uncollateralized A versus the double A, and it's only a few basis points, I'd say, I'd like to instruct our manager to go with a higher one and give up a few basis points. I mean, the example, for example, shows an A at 187 and a double A at 187 and an A at 19. That's enough, not enough to persuade me to go with the A.
So you're giving them direction.
Yeah.
Understood. Okay.
We have confidence.
Is that good for you? No, Tom?
Yes.
Okay.
So double A minus is the minimum rating that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Is that?
I think what we were talking about is to bid it both ways.
Yes.
We would bid double A minus uncollateralized,
I see.
and then we would bid an A minus institution that would provide the collateral. I think what Tom was saying is if the rates are really, narrow,
Close.
he would prefer doing the double A minus bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
All right. Can I have a motion for the consent calendar?
And when we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, consent calendar passes. Number 10, thank you very much, Jim and Mark. Thank you. Number 10 is approval request, consideration of rejecting all bids for the large diameter gravity sewer rehabilitation project 2, part 3, and authorizing staff to rebid the project. Greg, can you tell us why this is happening?
Yeah, so I'll give a little bit of background and then we've got Catherine Hayden here as well to answer questions. So items 10 and item 11 are both similar in the sense that they've, we've gotten some, just basically some unfortunate bid results. So as a way of a quick recap, the district condition assessed 9 miles of pipe back in 2014. That was our trunk line piping. We determined that about 2.5 miles of that piping was actually in critical need of upgrade, and most of the piping was in good shape. So that was the whole purpose of that condition assessment. We then took that roughly 2.5 miles and we broke it down into various packages based on location and construction methodologies and so forth. So the first one of those is just about done, is wrapping up, as we speak, sort of at this time. The second one, which was a lot of the activity you saw in downtown San Anselmo, is it's fairly far along, but because of some of the problems they ran into construction, they're going to have to come back after the rainy season and finish up some of that work. This is project 2-3. This is the work, think of this as going from the southern, no, I'm sorry, let me get my directions straight. Roughly the eastern edge of San Anselmo, down through Ross, towards Kentfield and into College Marin. Right. And so what happened is the project's been going along fairly well. We got design, we went out to bid, and we got one bid, and it was over double what the engineer's estimate was. And after reviewing that, we can't, staff is, we have no reason, we just can't see any good reason to recommend moving forward with accepting that single bid, given its, fairly, not fairly, but extremely high cost. So our recommendation is to reject that bid, which you have wide latitude to do, and Andrea can comment if there's any questions on that, and rebid it, but rebid a smaller portion of the job that does a couple things. A, it takes care of the immediate capacity restriction that we're actually trying to address. It does take care of the high public profile work in the Ross Commons during the non-school year time, which we think would be really great to get in there. And it puts the work into two packages that we think will be more competitive in terms of the number of contractors interested and so forth. So what we're, again, recommending is reject the bid, repackage and rebid, and the new package would be, we think, about half of the estimated dollar value of the current project. We'll then come back later. It's not that we're not going to do the remaining work, but we won't do it this upcoming construction season, and we'll figure out how to repackage and make that work. So that's what this is about. Staff's recommendation is to reject and repackage and rebid.
And can you tell me why you think the only one company bid and why it was so high?
Catherine, do you want to try to take a cut at that?
Yeah, the public bidding climate is really competitive right now, which is one factor. It's also, it's a complex project, and it had some very strict constraints in terms of time.
Is there a lot of open trench?
There's not a lot of open trench. So it has lots of methods. So they would have a lining contractor. They would have the open trench, which would be from Ross Common down to the Kentfield border. The lining, pipe reaming, boring jacks, slip lining. So it had a lot of methods, and that complexity is one factor.
And
it was a big project.
What's the most expensive part of that? The type of replacement? Boring?
Per foot, probably, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The pipe reaming was about 20% of the cost. But per foot, I don't know. Probably the pipe reaming.
Who did the engineer's estimate?
Brown and Caldwell.
Brown and Caldwell. How could they be that far off? Don't they do this every day?
Or how could rain?
We had two of the same results. I think we can't say that this is a market competitive bid. We don't know with only
They
getting
might have just
one.
thrown out a big high bid and
That's,
we're going to throw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also, I mean, I don't know, did they have any way of knowing that they were going to be the only bid? So.
Well, I'm sorry, didn't they have our estimate prior to their bid?
No. They had the dollar amount, but not the breakdown, not where we think the cost. Oh, so yes, they
So
did.
they didn't know how much.
have an engineer's
So when you
estimate.
double it, you're not even the only person doubling it.
you don't know you're going to be the only bidder.
Yeah, but if you're doubling it, you got to be counting on that.
That's not related. I don't understand that. They bid what they paid. We don't have much competition. Let's throw out a high bid.
Right.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying, in my opinion, because I've been on projects, if I'm going to double what the person is estimating it at, I'm counting that I'm the only one. I'm just betting, it's a guess. But I wouldn't double it if I didn't think I was gonna be the only one. What would be the point?
Because you just might get it. And so, you know, if we don't reject the bid, you may get it.
Right. Well, we're gonna see
I
about
guess
that
we're
in a few
smarter
minutes,
than
aren't
we
we?
look.
Okay. Michael, do you have any questions or comments?
No.
All right. Questions, Mary?
No, I think it's a good idea. I mean, we went to all this trouble to combine them, but now we're learning that the market does weird things with that would cost our ratepayers more. And we don't need to have it all done at once. I think we have to have the high profile raw stuff done when school's not in session. So yeah, I don't have any problem. In a way, it's like saying, whoops, we made a mistake, but instead of spending tens of millions of dollars of the ratepayers' money because we have pride in the way we did it the first time, we'll do it again.
Now, one downside of this is in our permit.
Hang on a second. Do you have any other questions for staff? Because I'd like to open it for public comment before we bring it back to the comments part.
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
Isn't it a disadvantage of this, Greg, is that in our permit with Central Marin, we promised to do this project.
Yes, well, in our permit with, in our 2013 cease and desist order, there's a table of projects that are, I would say, it's probably fair to say they include this wet weather improvement project. The timing of that specific project is somewhat flexible, but to be very clear, Tom, both of these, meaning item, this one we're talking about and the next item, are going to be ones that we're going to want to circle back with the regional board staff in Oakland, give them an update, let them know what's happening, so they're aware of it. But yeah, these are required projects. The naming may have shifted a little bit because we've kind of changed the names of the projects. But I do think it is correct to say that this is part of the required projects for the 2013 cease and desist order, not the new federal NPDES.
Yeah, it's
Sorry.
not applied.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, any public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the board. Any comments or anything anybody wants to say? Tom?
No, I phrased my comment to a question.
Okay.
Very
Okay, I'll take a motion.
I move that we accept all bids for the large diameter gravity sewer rehabilitation project 2-3 and authorize staff to rebid the project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. Seeing none, the motion carries. Agenda item number 11, considering rejecting all bids and rebid for the fiscal year 2016-17 gravity sewer project and authorizing staff to rebid the project. Okay. Similar story.
Prior
Sleepy Hollow, right?
It's Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, certainly we just didn't see this
Is there any
coming.
precedent?
I've never heard precedent.
We didn't see this
I wonder
coming.
why we can combine two agenda items.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, the lower Butterfield work has got some complexities of its own, so it's worth addressing separately. So yeah, similar situation. Little history to this one. Because it'll actually be germane a little bit to one of the upcoming agenda items as well. So what we call the FY 2016-17 gravity sewer improvements project is that batch of work at the lower end of Butterfield Road at the exit of Sleepy Hollow. It involves a series of wet weather flow improvements and rehab work. We've worked very carefully over the last year with San Anselmo and MWD to shift around timing and coordinate these projects because in that very restricted corridor of Lower Butterfield, over the next 3 construction seasons, you're going to have Ross Valley in there trying to do some major gravity sewer work. You're going to have MWD replacing a major old water line. And you're going to have the town of San Anselmo doing a variety of road upgrades in that area. So back to this item, clearly same thing, one bid, same contractor, Ranger in this case, and over double what the engineer's estimate is. So again, after reviewing the bid, we cannot staff can't determine, a valid reason for moving ahead at these costs. And what we're recommending is a rejection and repackaging and rebidding of this. And if you turn to attachment A of the staff report, I think it's much more easy, pardon me, it's much easier, I should say, to look at it, to show you how we've broken it out. So we would still go forward with a more modest project this construction season, but we would stay out of Butterfield Road. And the benefit of that is that gives this season to MMWD to go ahead and complete the water main that they need to replace this season.
So they're gonna jump ahead of us.
So they would jump ahead of us. We had asked them to wait, well, we've actually jockeyed a few times, but the latest jockeying was, okay, you're gonna wait till 19, we're gonna get in during 18. Well, now that we've run into this, the part we want to remove under the repackaging because of this unexpected bid happens to be the very deep, complicated work that is intersects along Lower Butterfield Road. So by us pulling that portion out for the rebid, it then opens up Lower Butterfield this season for MMWD, and we're north of 90% sure that they're ready to jump in and take advantage of that. Did we hear anything?
I don't have confirmation.
Okay, we don't have 100% confirmation, but we're hoping we will. So we would reject, rebid. We'd rebid a smaller portion. It would be the area you see in green on the attachment A to the staff report. We then come back in the construction season 2020? 19. Come back in construction season 2019 and complete the next portion of this work. It's a little hard to read, but up to about
Up to Arroyo.
Arroyo. So if you look at that, the yellow line labeled Butterfield, about the upper half of that would be done in 2019. Everything else would be done in 2020. Or did I reverse that?
Yeah, the lower part would be 19.
The lower part of the curve, okay. So what that means is all the work still gets done in 3 construction seasons by all the agencies. We just are going to have to be flexible on the timing. And what we hope is that by breaking out and removing the pilot bore drilling work, which is more specialized, we'll get a bigger field of bidders and ideally end up with a more reasonable competitive bid and still be able to get in and do the work, some of the work this summer.
Okay, Tom?
So we'll get blamed for digging up that road again.
Yep. Let's go to the town of San, someone wants to have us pay 33% of widening the road. Which, in a private conversation, I had a comment similar to the one we heard earlier tonight, which was not, anyway. I have a question. On some of this project, what's the deepest we're going down?
The part at the corner of Butterfield and Meadowcroft is 27 feet.
27
Very
feet deep. And that requires a specific type of equipment, right?
Yes.
And not all of the construction firms we deal with own that piece of equipment, correct?
Correct. It's a subcontractor, and we think that could have been a factor here where, those specialty contractors are busy.
So
and we had very constrained timeline in terms of our construction of Butterfield. We had a 9-week window for that.
How far are we sending out these? How far are we sending out these bids?
We typically we put it on eBid board, which is available to anybody who wants to check it. We send it to builders exchanges as far as Sacramento. We have discussed doing a much wider range for this max packaging that we're doing.
I think
There's
that's
nothing against any Southern California. There's lining contractors, lots of other places.
Would it make any sense for you to find out the type of boring machine, let's say it's a John Deere, and finding out who they sold their boring machines to?
Yeah, we reached out to public synthetic boring contractors, and part of it is, a lot of it is the constraints of the restricted time, and so we have to figure out how to work around that. But we could reach out to more and see. We reached out to contractors in the peninsula, and got their feedback on.
I think you look at Central, Central, thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, the more the merrier. And it actually brings up a question, Greg, why don't we break out more of these? Could we save money by breaking?
We spent years saying we were gonna save money by combining.
Yeah. So yeah, this is an unexpected, twist of events, and it is, it has, so to be clear, we several years ago, we put our capital program on a strategy that said, had an element that said, look, if we can do larger, more consolidated projects, our limited capital project delivery capacity is better leveraged that way. And back then, all indications were that the costs were, for all your overhead, were, to design, administer, do construction management, all go down as you do bigger projects. And I do think that has played out. So for perspective, we've completed the FY 2014-15 project under this model, which was, I don't know, 6 or 7 miles of 4 or 5, somewhere in the 5 to 6 miles of pipe. The 15-16 project is north of 90%, pushing 80%. It's about 90% done. It went exactly as expected, huge economy of scale, got like how many miles of pipe?
6 to 7.
Okay, so call it 6 to 7 miles of pipe. So the model was working. We were getting competitive bids. We were getting big packages that didn't get done and leverage our delivery staff's capability because we only have so many project managers. So this has really thrown us, and it's unfortunate because these are the last 2 big packages out of the current program. So yes, somewhat counterintuitively, our solution is to now break these back apart. Now, the one thing I do think, at least from my conversations with Catherine and others, that we may have missed, particularly on the work that requires the more specialty equipment like the pilot tube boring and so forth, is that the tighter we made the window from bidding to notice to proceed to required performance time, the more we put pressure on any of those choke points, like, well, only so many contractors have that kind of equipment. So I think it's probably fair to say, at least I'll just speak for myself, I hadn't considered that. So I think that's certainly a factor. Now, by breaking this particular job up, what that would do is, assuming that that's a significant part of the cost, then that handful of contractors who do have the specialty equipment, when we rebid, we would do it in a manner that has much more lead time for them to go, okay, well, I can do that anywhere between here and there. Right now, we've got them on this, like, as you pointed out, we've got, we get to do it right here and that's it. And they're like, I got stuff all over the state right now. so they're not going to bid it, or they're going to, they're just not going to bid it. Yeah, so this has been a lesson learned. Big capital projects, big capital programs. This was just a bit of a lesson learned. Yeah.
Any other comments?
Well, this is just to save us.
No.
Well, hang on. Any public comment? No public comment. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to move that we reject all bids for the fiscal year 16-17 gravity sewer improvement projects and authorize staff to rebid the project.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And that motion carries. We're going to move on to item number 12, consideration of authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute amendment number 2, the consultant service agreement with Harris Associates for fiscal year 2015-16 gravity sewer improvement project and fiscal year 16-17 gravity sewer improvements project for an additional $301,124. Greg, would you explain why this is?
Yes, okay, so this has a bit of background, which is why the staff report is a little bit longer, because we wanted to provide some context to this. So first of all, recognize that an amendment change of that dollar value is of note. To put that in context and sort of back up a second here, again, our strategy at the time was we issued one design and SD services during construction contract for both the entirety of the 15-16 project and the entirety of the original 16-17 project. Point being, it was a fairly large for us, design contract that started out at about the $2.4 million range. This work has now been going on for 2+ years, I think, and it has had a number of elements that have simply resulted in the extra scope of services that we have been requesting from Harris and Associates. A lot of the middle pages of the staff report outline some of those changes. I don't want to go through them in great detail, but I think they essentially, in summary, boil down to this. We have had repackaging of the projects, trying to work with our government partners, like on the repackaging of, so every time we do that, we have to ask Harris to break out and rework the documents. We've had about a 10% increase in the length of piping because we've added elements, and that 10% hasn't been simple piping. It's been mostly like driven by the bridge projects that the local municipalities are doing. And in some cases, that's had a domino effect where we didn't have to go and get new easement for those lines. So you have basically time costs money because project management and everything goes on. We've added physical scope to the projects, and we have asked for a lot of basically specialty analysis and so forth as these projects have continued. So you are looking at about, in total right now, about a total combined is a little under a third, so just under 30% increase overall over the last 2+ years of this of these design and SDC services. Big numbers, but again, to put them in context, right now, based on our engineers' estimates, we're talking about $24 million in construction value. Put that for the design services with the amendment, and you're still looking at design services that are well within the range of the guidelines for the amount of work that is being produced. So those are the reasons for the change. Think of anything else of note, but I think those are the key points. So we have Jasmine Kopi from Harris, and we have Catherine as well too, and Jill also to answer any questions on this.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
Well, I wrote down, were they the ones that made the estimates?
Engineers estimates?
One of the projects.
Was Harris the one that made the estimates? No. I do have one comment, and it's back here on your test deals. You charge hours to work the subs, and then you charge a 10% markup on the subcontract. Shouldn't it be one or the other? In other words, you charge hours.
Where is that?
Okay, well, let's go to one of the pages. It says project management coordination with the sub-consultant. And there's the project management 12 hours and the people 6 hours. And this is, let's see, 4 or 5, for example, page 4 or 5.
Yep.
And it's, so why both?
The markup is on the sub cost, and then that's added to the Harris cost for hours.
Yeah,
So 10% is only on the sub part of it.
No, so Harris charges time, coordination with the sub. In this Butterfield community outreach, 18 hours coordinating with the sub, and then they mark up the sub-consultant fee by 10%.
So the 10% is processing contracts with us, negotiating, and then there's the other part where we're reviewing their work, defining the scope for them, and the coordination, and like sometimes they have to go out in the field, and we have to call the district, can you get staff to meet with them? So that type of coordination, and that's not in the 10%.
Yeah, I would compare it to like I do nonprofit grants. So you're going to charge program people to the grant, but then you always get an administrative cost, and that is just merely for like the cost of administering the contract, your phone lines. It's seen as overhead that is justifiable.
You're talking to a guy who's been a consultant for 32 years.
But I would say it's the difference between the administrative costs and the actual staff that they're paying.
Okay, but 10% is kind of
It's
an
a-
off-the-wall number.
It's a standard off-the-wall number. It's a low off-the-wall number.
I'm just asking her to just.
Okay, sorry. Have my other hat on sometimes.
I'm having to stop do work in Victorville tomorrow, and I'm tripling his rate.
I don't think you should tell us all this.
Why? Oh, ask through?
Well, you know, I was struck by how huge.
Well, I don't think anybody in Victorville watches this. If they do, maybe.
Victorville wastewater reclamation is well managed now. Guy who's got about $8 million worth of grants. I sat next to him in Castle.
We need to get more grants.
I don't know how he did it. Talked to an old one, but I think his name was not Lance, something like that. Oldfield or something. Anyway, you know that.
Okay. Any other questions? Any public comment? Can I have a motion?
I move, do we authorize the general manager upon review and approval of council to execute amendment to the consultant services agreement with Harris and Associates for an additional $301,224.
Second. So I have a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I said,
I know, what did I do? Okay. All right. All right, discussion, number 13 is discussion and direction of, thank you very much for attending, by the way, appreciate it. Discussion and direction of proposed updates to CMSA Joint Powers Authority Agreement. Greg, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so this is really good news. I mean, really steady progress. So the ad hoc committee for the updating of the Joint Powers Authority Agreement has completed their discussion and review of what we call topic group number 5. And remember, we broke the process was to take the current JPA agreement and sort of disaggregate it into 5 different, topic groups and bring those sequentially to the boards. And the prior 4 groups of topics have all been brought before the respective boards, feedback's been provided, and the final edits have been agreed upon by the ad hoc committee as they've come back. So group 5 is the last of these. Some of the topics that it deals with are the things like indemnification and insurance, et cetera, which you can see in the staff report. And just to point it out, there is both a red line and a clean version of the updates to the agreement. So I won't go through those in detail. The one item I will point out, because it's probably the one that the managers I know have spent out of these topics, it's the one we spent the most time on. And that was the section 22 dealing with withdrawal or dissolution of the Joint Powers Authority itself. And from the manager's perspective, which you would have seen already in our early comments on this a year ago or so, was that clause may have made sense in 1979 when the agreement was first being put together. You had a lot of uncertainty. Here we are 40 odd years later, and the practicality of trying to put contract language in that specifies how a member agency is supposed to exit, because that is such a complicated and convoluted topic. It didn't make, we agreed at the manager level, it didn't make sense to try to tackle that in the contract language. It just says if it happens, the parties are going to sit down and talk about it. You don't have a choice. You're going to have to figure out how to untie that knot, because it's a complicated knot. And Tom, I know in past conversations, you brought up some examples of this where it may sound simple. We got 4 members, somebody wants to leave. but then you bring in physical assets, you bring in all these.
Financial commitments.
Yeah, and scenarios, so many scenarios that you can't foresee, right? So we said, look, why would you bend your head trying to come up with an answer to that?
And if I may interrupt.
Yeah,
the members, the subcommittee members on this committee basically all said, there is no dissolution.
Right, okay.
So,
Yeah, this time in history, in the year 2018, to talk about the solution is yeah, so anyway, you have the changes in front of you. That's really the whole staff report. The ad hoc committee, from the general manager's perspective, I think we all are just really pleased that this has gone as smoothly as it is. I hope that the board feels the same way. Depending on your decision and direction this evening, we'll take any feedback back to the ad hoc committee through Doug as the member on that. And we would anticipate that somewhere in the March-April timeline, all of the member agency boards would be discussing and considering a complete, clean, new joint powers authority agreement to consider for execution.
But you haven't got to the juicy stuff.
Right, well, that's the one
So,
that Doug is going to go.
How can you say you have an end?
Well, other than that item, everything else is addressed.
Again, I've spoken to Larkspur Town Council members and Larkspur Town Manager at length, Town Manager, and I'm going to do exactly that with the direction of this board and the authorization of this board is I'm going to lance that boil.
So what is our position?
I'll tell you what my position is.
I know what mine is, but you tell me.
My position is this, because I can see the future. My position is that the subcommittee direct the town of Larkspur to put this on their agenda and let them then tell the subcommittee or CMSA what they want. I think that's all we need to do. Guarantee that. That's my opinion.
Well, you don't want to make a recommendation that since they have no
We can do that later. We're asking them first to give us direction. We can reject that direction, but what I'm asking them to do, because it's the whole catch-22. You have one of the members is adamantly does not, we don't know, we're not telling them, we're not kicking anybody off. We're not kicking anybody off. That's not right, it's not fair, it's not nice.
You can't kick anybody off, but you can recommend.
Right, but I don't think we need to recommend. I really don't think we need to recommend. I think we need Larkspur. So again, as I said earlier in this meeting on the other topic, I can tell you what Larkspur's doing. They're waiting for the CMSA subcommittee to tell them what to do, or ask them what to do, and the CMSA board, the other members, the other 3 members of the subcommittee are waiting for Larkspur to do something. And I'm the only one that's going to, what I would recommend, unless you tell me different, I'm happy to take the direction. You know, a subcommittee member needs to follow the directions of the board, and I'm perfectly willing to do that. All I feel we need to do is have the subcommittee ask Larkspur, put it on the agenda, and direct us. Now, if Larkspur refuses, well then that's fine, because we're not closing this subcommittee until this issue is addressed.
Who's on the subcommittee, remind me?
Sam Rafael,
Mary Beth
Bushy, and
Diane first.
Diane first, and then
Diane's
the new mayor of Larkspur, please help me with this.
Diane's going to be, she's not going to be coming back.
Hellman.
Thank you.
You know that.
What?
Diane first told me when she's up for re-election, she's not.
It's not over, so she's on
Right,
now.
so it'll wait till June.
Right, okay.
So it is a subcommittee that has a representative from each one of the districts.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm happy if that's what you think.
Do you think they will do it? I mean, will they put it on their agenda if you say put it on your agenda?
The
Or
the
I thought
exact
that was.
words of the town manager was, I have no reason to put this on the agenda.
Well, talk to the mayor.
I did,
Yeah, there you go.
I did.
Tell her, right?
Well, at the time when I spoke to him, it was, who ran first?
Kevin Harrell.
Kevin
Kevin
Harrell.
Harrell. I spoke to Kevin Harrell. You know,
Too bad.
I'm not on that council. I can speak to more members, can't I?
Of course.
Yeah, and I did. So I can tell you that all we need to do is get on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
You mean be an open agenda item?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So we could go.
Yeah, okay.
I have one quick question about this. First of all, I want to thank you for being very diligent and diplomatic in moving this along. I never thought this would get to here. I looked at it 8 years ago and I'm like, oh my God, this thing's a mess. Total nightmare mess. And so you've made it simple, and I think that's excellent.
Good.
Now, my quick question is attorney stuff. Are you looking at all, who is the attorney that puts the seal on it to make sure, because we are throwing out a ton.
Yeah, I haven't been asked to review anything. I don't know if county counsel, who serves counsel with CMSA, would be, I presume that would be, it would at least be looked at by that. But I also think that before this board approves an amendment to the JPA, I would look at it.
Okay. Yeah, I think that makes good sense.
Did you eyeball it and say?
No, I've read each of these, and it all makes sense from a policy perspective. I haven't seen anything that's jumped out at me as a red flag.
So, okay, it's just there's so much
Yeah.
chopped.
It's definitely going to be reviewed by our legal counsel when it's applied.
Okay, so you're going to review it at the end rather than?
Yeah, but I mean, I've read all of these.
Okay.
I haven't interacted with the subcommittee in any way, but I haven't had any major red flags. But I will do a review before you guys approve it.
We're not voting on it tonight.
Jason, I know from General Manager Dow's comments that I don't think we were misunderstanding. He clearly was planning on having Jack Cody take the complete clean copy and do a review in Jack Cody's capacity as legal counsel for CMSA. So again, I obviously
I've got one more
again, it's respect, all of our respective legal counsels would.
Do you think, because I don't think the public really knows what's really going on except
Do you think they do?
So I'm wondering, should we do an open house or something to give some PR to the public to let them weigh in on it toward the end? I just wonder about our transparency, that's all.
Well, we've not, when we talk about this, I don't think it's necessary nor required, and I'll tell you why. We have had this on this agenda, it's been on the Corte Madera agenda, it's been on the Larkspur agenda, it's been on the San Rafael agenda.
No public's come.
Repeatedly.
Okay.
It's been on ours 7 times, it's been on theirs 7 times, 7 times.
Is your committee noticed committee? Is it?
No, we're not a notice committee, but the door's open, if somebody walks in, sits down, there's no, it's not a notice
So
committee.
it's it's ad hoc?
Ad hoc. So I think the public has had ample opportunity, and it's a very technical document. I don't think that we have the interest in the public on this type of a technical issue. They're welcome to, but that's kind of why they put us on. You know, that's you know. Okay.
I have a comment.
Do you?
Okay. As written, section 22 is an attorney's dream. It implies that there are some obligations, and I strongly disagree with it. I don't want you to go into big details on what to do, but I want you to add a clause, because the way an agency would pull out of CMSA is exactly what happened to American Canyon and the Napa Sanitation District. And that was that American Canyon wanted to build a treatment plant, so they got bought out by Napa so they could build a treatment plant. And so I want to add, keep that first line, I guess, in no event shall an adjoining member be entitled to any compensation from the JPA or other members. I want to add that line.
I'll be happy to make a suggestion. Can you hand me that paper? Yep. Thank you. Tell you what. I'll give you mine.
That, I see an attorney over there who's going to say something. Is that?
Well, I was going to ask, I
Is
think
that
that's fine. I was going to ask, what has the discussion been? Because has the discussion been, nobody can withdraw unless everybody agrees they can withdraw?
I'm sorry, nobody can withdraw unless everybody agrees.
Well, then why don't you put that in?
Because that would be
was in
important to
there.
have in there.
It was.
What you're doing is you're saying, we'll discuss what your rights are,
Talked it
or
out.
something like, or how much we're going to pay you.
Right. It has to be a bargain.
Yeah, you're going to have a bargain.
So if you look at the red line strikeout version of section 22, it gives you an idea of why, what we're, because the old.
I think the first line, I completely agree, we shouldn't try to say, gee, you're going to do this and that, we don't know. But I just want to not make it lucrative for somebody to drop on.
So
You
if
mean
you,
make it so easy they could, without any.
Yeah.
Well, the other answer is to put it back in the way I
Yeah,
just
that
said
makes
it, which is, it has to be unanimous. In which case, if it's unanimous, the other three agencies are just gonna say, this is the way it's gonna be.
Well, that's
Okay, so
why
then it goes to the attorneys.
No.
And then yes, it does, and then the attorney says, these other agencies are trying to cheat me out of, the valuable asset of this treatment plant, which is worth $400 million about, and I only want 10% of that. Because I use 10%, I pay 10%.
Well, if we put in the line you were suggesting, the line I just stated, which is, it has to be unanimous, the vote is no. Doesn't matter what you want, the vote's no.
Then it goes to the attorneys.
Why do you say that? Do you really want
The
to do
vote
that?
is no,
Well,
and you three agencies are rooking me.
Yeah, if you want to avoid, I mean, I see where you're headed, which is that if you're able to agree on basic tenets, like it has to be unanimous and you won't get any compensation, et cetera, then I think it's smart to try to do that now. Because then you avoid some legal challenge that there's an implied right, because it's so squishy. So I don't disagree with that. And it does leave the impression that it probably won't be a problem. We're just going to figure out what the process is. And if that's not the impression that you want to leave, then you should hammer out some detail, even if it takes an extra meeting.
Yeah. Okay.
so I think
Right, I guess-
so we sort of felt like, you had two objectives. One was to make the bar very high for withdrawal, and the second was to somewhat, make it very painful. The idea that you really aren't,
And
this
then we
isn't
hope
something
that we are the one who wants to
Right.
withdraw.
Right, and well, it makes me think there needs to be like a whereas we realize that these entities are inextricably, at least reasonably inextricably linked, financially, physically, and whatever, like, in the event that one wishes to withdraw, there will be a negotiation about the remuneration, or something like that. Like, it's basically like you need to pay to get out, instead of you're going to get something.
This doesn't work unless we're all in.
Right.
Because I wanted to put in that if they withdraw, they can get no money, but they're still obligated for their share of debt. Remember, that's what I wanted
That's
to
pretty
do, but we don't need to do that.
Nobody's participating in the meeting, okay.
All right.
That's,
So unanimous and
In no event
no financial compensation. in some
Actually,
fashion.
100%.
Okay, just because nobody thinks the word.
Everybody, I think the work that you've done is so far.
That is amazing, yes, and the idea that there may be an ability to realign the numbers, I did not think that was possible.
And the only reason it's possible is because we dropped that lawsuit, and we've been able to work with them as opposed to suing them.
Yeah.
Yep. You were taking the heat for Tom, thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so,
that was your direction.
and I appreciate it, and I will follow that direction. Okay, number 15 is consideration.
14.
Oh, I crossed it out, I should have. That's what I did, I crossed it out. Consideration of authorizing the general manager upon review and approval of legal counsel to execute task order number 2, consultant services and project management for district communications and public outreach with NV5. So that's one.
It's already going on.
Okay, so this item is dealing with our public outreach program, and it is basically sort of a cleanup item that staff, to be quite clear about it, we intended to bring you this task order early on in the fiscal year, and it simply did not happen, by our oversight. The work under task order number 2, so let me back up a second. We signed a master services agreement with NV5 to help build and support our new public communications program. Task order number 1 completed all of the work up through and including the outcomes of the public workshop that we hosted and the community survey. We then used all that information to develop task order number 2, which involved a range of items from press releases, etc. But the main one of the big ones was assistance with the oversight and management of the website update. That work was scoped It was included in the budget, you know, as a specific, you know, item to show outside services of what we're paying for. We wrote it up. Where we dropped the ball, so to speak, was we simply didn't bring the task force to the board. And this oversight wasn't caught until just about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or so. So the work has been on track. We're well below budget in most areas because we haven't had enough activity for them to you know, to burn some of those budgetary resources. The new website is up and running, so the outcomes that we have been looking for, you know, have been achieved. So this is really a contractual kind of catch-up item. And to be clear, it's not how we normally like to do business. Staff will strive to minimize having these in the future, but that is what we have in front of you. And so if it is approved, basically what that means is they'll continue forth with the work we already outlined, and the budget has a not-to-exceed amount of listed, that's the back, I think it's about $160,000. That doesn't change. They're about halfway through that right now. We're about halfway through the fiscal year. So far, so good. We're looking at using them. We've consulted their services already several times on specialty topics. And right now, what we're talking with them about is assistance on the capital program construction phase outreach, recognizing that we could be out in front of that a little bit more than we are. So things like public workshops, door hangers, advertisements for when we're going to have big disturbance footprints. We'd like to consolidate that a little bit, and NV5 might be able to provide that service. So that's what this task number 2 is about, and have Mary Brown and myself to answer any questions.
I have a question. When we're doing these projects, we see sometimes the trucks, which by the way, the logos can come up, the next agenda item. But wouldn't it make sense for these projects to have some sandwich boards all along them saying, you know, Ross Valley Sanitary District replacing the pipes, something along those? I mean, I think that's the best public outreach you can have. Some guys drive by, and some of these projects are going to take a year.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but we're replacing your pipes. And,
yeah, like Pump Station 12, you're going to see activity at Pump Station 12 for, you know, the next 6 or 8 months.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because every time I drive by a pipeline project, I stop and look at the truck. What is it? Do I recommend that construction? No, that's not ours.
Yeah.
So can I get part of MD5's money for that?
Well, we can certainly look at doing, using them to coordinate the production and distribution of the board. Yeah, that's commonly done. Our work, one of the challenges right now is...
And they could say numbers of the board documents.
Yeah.
Here's Greg's home number.
Your large stationary projects like Pump Station 12, Pump Station 13, some of the big pipeline work is more readily amenable to that. And then as we get out to where we're doing smaller stuff here and there, we might want to pick the bigger chunks of work and put those signs up for those bigger chunks.
Honestly, like I was going up Good Hill to get to my brother and sister-in-law's house, and Ranger was out there, and I was like, oh, I'm glad that doesn't say RVSD. The Ranger is there, like, doing work in Good Hill. I was stopped at Good Hill for a while, and I'm used to cruising up and down Good Hill quite quickly.
Did you yell at them?
No, I did not.
I like to see who's out there. I have some issues, and I don't know. I have people from the community complain about the website. They can't find anything, and I know it's totally new. But even myself, I'm not great on the stuff, but I was telling Mary or Greg that there's some, I just can't maneuver it very well at all. And so I'm wondering, is there something that I need to learn? If the community's complaining, then I'm worried that it's not going to be a better way to communicate and serve. Mm-hmm. And I've been looking at other websites from other agencies to see what they've got. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. Now, the education piece for health, we're not doing anything for health. I mean, there's a newspaper article which is really expensive, right, to put that ad. Mm-hmm. I don't know how we can do this.
The ad on the RJ?
Yeah.
No, I think that's a very good use of our money.
Do you know how many people read the newspaper?
I see it online all the
You
time.
see the ad online?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
thought the ad wasn't
And
online.
I go online all the time, it's on the front page.
Okay, well, anyway, I'm just wondering, could we have a guest speaker? Could we have something that really pushes help or something? I don't know. I know that this has been a long time coming just to get these people here. So I'm just wondering what we do for outreach for kids, for just something more about health. That's my little gripe. And then, there was something else I forgot. Shoot. I can't remember now. Okay. The senior one. So, I know you and I talked on the phone
Yeah.
about, we're doing these projects, I agree that we need a lot more out there, what we're doing.
Signage.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I see a lot of signs saying, we're going to be doing service in your area at this time. So you know to avoid to go out another street, or something of that nature.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that are still in development, but one of them, a lot of the focus is on making this information available more readily on the website. So the, what are called the maps, the story maps tools, which you'll start to see some examples on our website, where it's a very interactive map. You can pick your neighborhood, you can see what's going on there in terms of projects. So the one thing I would ask though is if you have people who say, hey, I can't find X, or whatever, just send a quick comment on what it is they're looking for.
They couldn't find the
what
board
they couldn't
members.
find.
I was gonna say, I'm guessing you're having people look for pictures of the board members, because that is buried pretty deeply. But I also don't think, I think it's much more user-friendly, because
I
it's
do.
asking you what do you need instead of,
But I did type in board members and it still didn't come up.
Open government.
Yeah.
Board of
So,
directors, board
put
of
in-
directors and meetings, it's right there. You open government's
No,
top
no,
center.
no, type
And there's
in
the
the
pictures.
question
That's
box,
a good picture.
put in board members. All right, I don't want to fight about this.
No, so we can, but the reason it's helpful for us to hear about those is they can go in and sort of, tweak around the pictures.
Yeah, no, I just,
and we
it
can-
was a community person too. I want to talk about our videotaping with Channel 26 on Sunday. I think this is part of this. Is it or not?
Not in V5s, it's,
Okay, never
not
mind.
in V5s directly.
Never mind.
Yeah, it is. It's right here.
all right. Are you entertaining a motion?
No, hang on, I'd like to touch on that.
Okay.
I realize because of the size of it, we can't put the videos of the meetings on our site, but I would like an easy, under open government, an easy link right there that just says, because it's on YouTube, November 1st, 2017
Right.
board meeting, and just a link to YouTube, and so that easily somebody can come on, and because these are videotaped, and that's the only thing, I don't think anybody knows that, and that's not clear on the website, but the rest of the website, hell, I have no problem with it.
I'm a PC dude.
I have to tell you that some of the pictures,
Yeah,
let me put it this way.
No,
When
I
I got a
like
picture
it
from
all.
Mary Brown saying, this is the picture of you, we're gonna put on the website, my email back was, oh, God, no. And it wasn't, and, I don't know what it
I
was.
couldn't open mine, and I should have.
So,
So
but I
you can
think
take
the
your
website's
own picture and send it to her off of your phone, I found out, because mine's gone.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to entertain a motion.
Okay, I move that we authorize the general manager upon review and approval of legal counsel to execute proposed task order number 2, consultant services and project management for NB5, with NB5.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None, and the motion carries. Moving on to number 15, consideration of approving resolution 18-1540, a resolution to formally change the name of the district from Sanitary District Number 1 of Marin County to Ross Valley Sanitary District. Great. And that would be accompany a logo too.
That would accompany a logo change as well, of which there's an example.
In the back.
Yes, so
It's not that hard.
It's not that different. So this is a real practical matter. It's one that obviously, we could continue to live with. We have for many, many years, but it crops up periodically as just problematic, more problematic than it needs to be. because we're continually maintaining and listing in legal documents and contracts and so forth, the AKA, terminology. So this is very much I would say a judgment call or whatever. There's not a right or wrong answer. But we do feel that when you look at how long we've been pulling both of these names forward, which is going on as far as we can tell since the 80s, and then you look ahead in, for example, in our communications program and our efforts to, sort of clearly brand and identify the district, et cetera, that we see advantages to simply clarifying and legally redefining the name to Ross Valley Sanitary District, period. And then we would take the necessary steps to make that change. The logo change is relatively straightforward. There's an example there to show you what that would look like. But we do see long-term administrative and avoidance of confusion benefits and so forth to this. So that's the reason for the name. We do recognize being the first sanitary district organized under the 1923, I think, Sanitary Act. So the Sanitary District Act, or Sanitary District number 1 name has some historic significance, certainly. I guess at some point the significance of that, gets less and less depending on where you are in history.
Do you really want to be the oldest sanitary district in
Well,
the city?
there's that. So staff recommendation is to consider this
Environmentally conscious.
Yeah.
Back to the oldest.
So we'll hand it back to the board for any questions.
My question is, how much problem is it to change everything? Is
What's
it
it
legal
cost?
issues
How
and
much?
costs?
I would say it's pretty straightforward. We've been operating under the Ross Valley Sanitary District name and Sanitary District number 1 over a long period of time, using both of those.
Something when you change your name, it's kind of like that or not?
Well, so the requirement of the district would be to have a board-approved resolution, which we would then file with the county of Marin, and we would then send that approved resolution to, our vendors and our membership organizations and our, internal staff here, so that we would all, change our email signatures and what have you. So I don't think that there's a lot of cost. I think it's really just more follow-up, and it ultimately probably simplifies things.
Yeah, it
for everyone
does.
going
I just
forward.
wondered. Because even to file for election, it's got Sanitary 1 on it. And nobody knows who Sanitary 1 is.
That's right, that's right. And the property tax bills
Are sanitary.
Are sanitary 1, yeah. So
the county.
And I think if I could add just one other thing about the logo in terms of the cost. NV5 did that mock-up with the logo. We noticed that we really didn't change
Much.
anything significantly about the logo, which kept the cost down. We're using the same font, we're using the same image, we're using the same general shape. We're just changing the name.
We're not going to change on all our manhole covers.
No. What about the trucks? Do we have an estimate on cost, ballpark cost?
Those aren't that hard. They're those
Yeah, those are laminates.
the laminate labels you just.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Those trucks they're not
Yeah.
painted on?
Few more bucks.
What are you talking about?
The trucks have logos on.
Truck logos,
Oh.
yeah.
You don't have to change all of them.
I know.
No, I think you do. If you're changing the name and the logo, then I think you do.
You don't have to do it all at once.
You don't have to do it all at once.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because we have our new website, it's part of branding to have like a consistent, easy to remember name. So.
And the branding is local.
So,
Now, there's a little history here. Sanitary District number 1 does not refer to the first sanitary district in the state. It's Sanitary District number 1 in Marin County.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And when being the first sanitary district means, I think I'm right on that?
Yeah.
No, I agree, that's how you should read it. Is it also true that it's the first sanitary district in the state?
It was, and because they immediately adopted the 23 Act, we were founded in 99 and we were a sewer district or something like that.
Right.
And then we immediately adopted the Sanitary District Act of 23. So we were the first in the state.
And was San 2 the second in the state, or was
No,
this
the
the
second in Marin County.
So what we say in the communications program is California's oldest district.
Yeah, and that, we believe that's true. Oldest
We
district.
don't care what anybody else
oldest
says.
sanitary. Yeah.
All right.
Oldest board.
You know, you ought to see some of those water districts.
Yeah, I know. Okay. All right, so can I have a motion?
I move that,
We adopt the
Right
resolution.
here.
What are we doing?
It's a resolution.
Okay. I move that we approve resolution number 18-1540, resolution to formally change the name of the district from Sanitary District Number 1 of Marin County to Ross Valley Sanitary District.
Do I have a second?
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries.
So now the contracts are gonna read formally known as.
Okay, can I have,
The artist did
any,
not.
verbal reports? Mike, do you have anything to say?
Okay, I do.
Okay, hang on, Tom.
On,
Anything for open topics?
open talks, no.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna, this is a, Sophie's back, really back, she's got, doing her minutes are much better than we were before. Are we gonna also talk about the acid? Good, okay. All right, so, anyway, so here's the North Bay watershed, and a lot is sort of happening there. We have the conference coming up on April 6th, and so now there's going to be 2 tickets because in the consent calendar, we are one of the sponsors. And here, they finally wrapped up who's going to be there. It's going to be pretty awesome, as I can see. It'll be in Kalunama, Jared Huffman, Mike Thomas, and then other people will speak, including Grant Davis. You want to pass that down? So Judy sort of talked about some of the money issues going on with the EPA and the San Francisco Bay Quality Improvement Fund. And so money is going out, and it's really good to hear that there's actually money that's being spent on these projects. What else is happening? So mostly she talked a lot about the conference and getting it going. And the other part of the meeting was a lot on sea level rise. And Chris Chu from the county, who's the planner from the county, talked a lot about planning and how it's going to be funded. And there's really nothing that's been plans that are projecting like what's going to happen when sea level rises. And what I learned in CASA is that the sea level rise is going to be 7 feet in 30 years. So nobody knows.
Sea level rise.
7 feet in 30 years. That's what they said in CASA. The guy.
No. He then corrected himself because the whole audience went, wait a minute, what are you talking about? 7 feet in 30 years?
Sadak? Okay. So anyway, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just going by my notes. So we're looking at the worst case scenarios, and as you know, with sea level rise, and most of our plants were built close to waterfronts. So it's all going to back up, and we're going to have to push all our plants back into the watershed. It's basically was a lot of the information. And then Sandeep did a really lovely overview of the Novato Sanitary District. It was pretty amazing. They do everything there, and they get a lot of awards. I was really surprised. I wish we could do that. Could we do that sometime? Maybe is have an overview, like a little something. But he spent like a good half hour, 45 minutes just talking about what they're doing and how well they're doing. And they actually own leased land out there too, which I didn't know. And they're actually saving a lot of money because they're using, what's it, the name of that company?
Viola.
Viola. So that is sort of it in a
That was a
nutshell.
battle.
Huh? What?
That was a battle.
That was a battle, a big battle for a long time. But supposedly they're saving, by using them, 1.4 million is what I read somewhere. And so next month, and anybody can go to these meetings. I mean, there's a lot of public there. There's going to be this Justice Coalition for Water and Fisheries. And so they really have a lot happening there. I don't think there's much else. Michael, you were there. Anything you want to add?
No, thank you. Marin, would you please move the North Bay watershed to agenda item standing committee report out?
I would move it up, so it's tired.
I think, I hate to say this, but I'm really, Pam's report's been great. They've been very much improved, but they come at the end of the meeting, and I'd rather have them where the finance and central sanitation and all those. Is there any reason why we wouldn't do that?
Yeah, I think
Maybe
I
we
asked
would
that.
rename that section then, because it's not a standing committee.
I'm sorry?
Maybe we would rename that section because it's not a standing committee report.
Right? We can call it subcommittees or other committee reports. It's not a standing committee.
How about just committee reports?
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I thought too we were going to have passing, because there's a lot of things that came, you know.
Why don't we put that on the agenda for next?
We should
That's a
discuss
good idea.
it.
And I think we probably should talk about the CASA conference. Why
Yeah,
don't we put it on the
Greg talked. He was awesome.
Can we put that on the,
Thank you.
can we put that on the next agenda?
Yeah, they covered a lot of material. You guys went through a lot of effort to
Yeah.
attend all the roundtables and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah, we
Round
organized
tables.
the.
We organized the roundtables, so we all didn't go to the same ones.
Greg, some ideas that we should be doing this.
Yeah, you get so much good information exchange. I think if you want to allocate just a discussion direction session for what we heard about.
Let's do that. And then any other verbal reports from anybody else? I'm going to mention.
I have a quick one. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I went to the MCL meeting, and you know that on the June ballot, there's going to be the passing of SB 5, and this is a big parks bond that's coming up, and then there's the California water bond that's going to be coming up in November. So I can talk more about it next time.
Okay. I'll point out that when I was on the San Antonio Town Council, and I was a chamberlain, I asked the council, I asked the town of San Antonio to have a pre-meeting meeting where they invited anybody who wanted to buy a business to come in for free and meet the town, the public works director, the planning director, and any other appropriate people. It's been working great. There was we had a chamber meeting recently where somebody came up and said how awesome that was, and how much you appreciated it. They did say, by the way, I got lines at the end because I had to change my lateral. No, but it was a chamber meeting, and I'm on the chamber, so I said, I'm going to give you $1,500 for coming to our meeting tonight. So he didn't know about the lateral grant program. He submitted his grant application 2 days ago, and he thanked me for letting him know about the lateral grant program. I sure hope that grant program goes well. Because two things. One, I think we were talking, Greg, about putting the lateral program requirements on the agenda to make it easier. For example, why do we care if somebody gets free rids? It's $1,500, but I put that.
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to say was, as a result of that meeting, and him mentioning that, I contacted Greg, and I asked Greg if he would, at the discretion of the town of San Anselmo planning director, if she feels a member of Ross Valley Sanitary District would be helpful at that free pre-meeting, she will contact Greg. Would Greg be kind enough to send somebody? And he agreed to do that. So from now on, if it's a restaurant, or they're not going to have one, but a car washing.
We've already started that.
That's
Because
awesome.
Elise had a question with a customer who was expanding
Kachina
Kachina restaurant, and they weren't aware of the fog issues, they weren't aware of a number of things that we found out via email. We said, well, she scheduled a meeting a week ahead of time, and Catherine's group was able to make sure.
That's
What is
awesome.
the pre-meeting for? Anybody who's opening a business?
Or doing expansion.
In
So you have no meetings, you may have to pay for staff time, but the first meeting's free and it's up to 2 hours.
You get a lot of good information, like again, this was a restaurant owner, so, but I was surprised, I said, well, have you talked to the CMSA folks? And they're like, again, who's CMSA, and what do we do? So I said, here's their phone number, here's the people, and then we arranged to have someone attend that initial meeting.
I really appreciate
that. I think it's super helpful, because it saves the customer an awful lot of headache if they just ask questions.
What Greg also did immediately, within 2 days of that, is he sent me and copied Elise a 2-page fact sheet for all the times that Elise, Elise is the planning director, all the times Elise doesn't feel it necessary, she's going to hand this out. And then somebody might read something and go, oh no, so that's going out every time to everybody. And then if Elise feels the need, she's going to call Greg, and I'm really pleased with it. It's really.
So I have a quick question about this kind of development issues. Right? So there's going to be this large 99 acres in Fairfax developed on raw land. And I'm curious to see how in the world you're going to do sewer up from the bottom to the top of that ridge, because that's the proposal's out and it's online. And there's going to be some community meetings for the town of Fairfax. Maybe you should come down there. I don't know. People are asking me like, Pam, I'm like, I don't know when to, I imagine it'll all iron out, but are we up? We're going to look at it. Oh, you are?
We're aware of it, and I think when they get ready to farm it along to where they're at the design stage, they'll be wanting to bring us a PSX, public sewer extension permit, most likely. It depends how they choose.
Because they're going to have to put in a pump. It's 10 houses.
It depends how they,
over 100 acres?
Yeah, what the topography's like. But we're aware of the project, because mostly because of the media coverage. But the PSX permit will be the trigger that will bring us into that discussion.
Okay.
So we'll be.
I'll tell them to call you.
Yeah. I was going to mention one quick thing. We did have the opportunity to participate in a City of Larkspur workshop that they hosted at CMPA on their paving program. And so they have figured out to a fairly good degree of detail what the next 5 years of their paving program look like. They had the city manager and public works director there. So they were kind enough to let us set up a side booth and basically hand out information on laterals and so forth.
Oh, wow.
It was, fairly lightly attended, not surprisingly, but it was a great opportunity. And the main reason I want to mention it is because along the theme of like the San Anselmo cooperation, a lot of really good just up front, capital project coordination and so forth is happening, I think, more and more. And I think staff's doing a good job supporting it, and people are pretty responsive to it, because we all benefit from it. And I think that the more we can do that, when some of these more difficult issues come up, all that goodwill that we've hopefully put in the bank with these efforts pays off, and the customers are happier. So these are really good steps. They're small, they may seem kind of minor, but I think as far as all of us providing better customer service at local government level, they go a long way.
People ask a lot of good questions there.
Pardon?
People ask a lot of
they did, yeah. The ones that were there were very interested. It just wasn't a huge, huge turnout.
Different than from the San Anselmo one that we attended. Nobody asked why we were picking up the garbage storage.
And the multi-unit buildings that I've emailed you about, and then the county paving work that's going to be done in Kentfield, unincorporated Kentfield. I think that's going to be really important, because there are a lot of apartment buildings along right there would have a lot of units. And their trigger is next year, is that right? To do lateral replacement?
The common interest property is coming out, yeah.
The work is actually, they have until 2024.
Okay, but they should do it while the county is doing the tearing out to Francis Wright, right?
Yep.
Okay.
If they go into, yes.
If they go into Serenity.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Definitely.
That's the bridger.
Call for motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Everybody move.